So tonight is our master class. When I was thinking about who and what could be our topic for our first master class, I thought it would be amazing if we could really define what is conscious business, because in the end, what we're creating is a new community in Mallorca for conscious business. So I think for us to have a really clear definition of what that is, and hopefully how that can help your business to be different, to be unique, but also how you can maybe integrate your own personal values of consciousness into your business. And I'm really excited that we're going to hear all about this from Tatjana. I had the pleasure of meeting Tatjana at a retreat about 1.5 years ago. And I was so impressed with this lady. And I thought, wow, she has to come and talk to us. So I was really happy that she had the time and she could join us. And she has immense experience in this topic of conscious business and leadership. So it's going to be extremely interesting, I'm sure. And at the end, we'll be able to ask some questions and find out more. So enjoy, and thank you for being here. Thank you,
Thank you. I'm going to say a couple of more words to myself so you know who is actually speaking in front of you. So, as I said, I grew up in Germany, but I lived all over the place because of my international business studies and of my corporate job. And I started my career right after university in a big Danish corporate, lived in Denmark, and had a great job. You know, this like the typical thing, traveling around the world, just and 20s business class, doing all the great projects in crazy countries like Iran, Australia, and Colombia. And you know, for me, in a way, my dreams that I had in business school came true with that job. But I felt, as you know, again, very typical, that something was missing. And then after some years, I actually quit the job to start my own company, which I thought was what I wanted to do. So I moved to Berlin and I had my own company and did all the mistakes that a first-time entrepreneur does and failed. And really got into a life crisis because I left my corporate job. My friends were having families and building big careers, buying houses. I put all my savings into the company, lost that, had a lawsuit with the investors. It was a nightmare, to say the least. And what do you do when you are very lost in your life? You go travel. So I went to South Africa and did my first Vipassana there. So for people that don't know what Vipassana is, it's a 10-day meditation silent retreat where you don't speak, you don't do basically anything apart from meditating. And why am I all telling you this? I'm telling you this in order to tell you how I got here, because in this 10-day silent retreat where your mind becomes so quiet after 10 days or after, like this was, I think, 6-7 days, your mind becomes so quiet that you start to hear your intuition. And for me, it was the first time in my life where I actually really heard my intuition. And my intuition told me I need to move to Mallorca. Didn't make any sense. I didn't know anyone here. I didn't know Mallorca. Mallorca was completely out of the picture. And the other message that I got was I need to bring consciousness into business, which also didn't make any really sense back then. But here I am 5 years later giving you this class. So that is just to give you a hint of what we're also going to see today. Because what happens is when we quiet our mind and when we listen within, be it, whatever you want to call it, like your intuition, your higher guidance and so forth, life magically aligns if we align ourselves. And then we are on our, what some people call soul path, what some people call, bringing in the consciousness into our lives. But we will go more into this. So what we're going to talk about today is what conscious leadership is. And in particular, IQ, EQ, and BQ, which stands for, intelligence, emotional intelligence, and body intelligence. That's my personal kind of definition of conscious leadership. I mean, it's also there in some books, but out of all the definitions of conscious leadership, I think this one is the most comprehensive one. Then we're going to see or look into why conscious leadership is important. And since conscious leadership cannot really be intellectualized, conscious leadership is something that we need to experience and that we need to practice. We are going to do a short exercise. It's very difficult to put conscious leadership in 1.5 hours. To keep in mind that we are scratching the surface, and also with the exercise we will scratch the surface. I usually give like 3 months courses on this, where each week we go into the characteristics of a conscious leader in detail. So this is really, giving you a broad overview. Just keep that in mind. But I thought we really need to do an exercise so that you don't leave with just having an intellectualized idea of what conscious leadership is. Because I'm telling you one thing, it's not like you're going to leave and be a conscious leader. It's just not how it goes. It's a lot of work, a lot of practice. And then I want to give you some practical advice of what you can really do tomorrow in order to take the first step on your path. And then we have some time, hopefully, for some questions. So, question to you. What is conscious leadership? Anyone? Any idea? Yeah.
I think it is to take decisions that benefit everybody.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. The staff, the same as business owners.
Yeah, definitely. Any other ideas?
Try to take right decisions at the right time.
Mm-hmm. That as well. Conscious leader does that as well. Any other ideas?
Leading from your intuition.
Definitely. Also, yes. Yes.
Has to be a balance between the logical mind and also what the heart tells you.
Mm-hmm.
You shouldn't be, of course it's business, you have to be rational, but this balance between the mind and the heart should be there.
Yeah, we will talk about this exactly. You said a very important word, balance. That's also something that we need to keep in mind when we talk about this topic, yeah. So I found 2 definitions of conscious leadership. So conscious leadership is an approach to leadership which focuses on self-awareness, responsibility, and team centricity. Self-awareness is something where we are, as the word says, self-aware, but that means that we are aware of our mind, like what is going on, our inner dialogue, of our emotions, and of our body sensations. So that means being self-aware. And also, conscious leaders see, hear, feel authentically and accurately and experience what is here now and respond out of the moment, and they're not trapped in old patterns. So that is also being self-aware. Because the opposite, being unconscious, is to live and act and lead from your past patterns and to be guided by that without realizing that you're actually taking decisions from your patterns and not from what is in the moment present. And in order to get there, you need to become self-aware. And to the point that, sorry, what was your name again? Mandy. You said that a conscious leader is taking, everyone into consideration. That's what is mentioned here as team centricity, and here free to lead and serve others, their organizations, themselves, and also the planet. That is a very big point of a conscious leader, that they're not self-centered, but that they take decisions that are good for themselves, yes. We're not sacrificing ourselves, but they're also taking all the stakeholders in consideration and also the planet. So, to be honest, conscious leaders are very rare. It's because our default mode is to live unconsciously, to take decisions from an unconscious. That's just how we are wired. You know, our mind is wired to take decisions based on our past experiences. So most people are taking decisions from old patterns and living from old patterns. It's a daily choice to be a conscious leader, and it's a continuous practice. Like I talked with someone before, I think it was you girls, that it's like a lifelong journey to be a conscious leader. And it is really a daily choice that you take. And not only a daily choice, it's actually in every moment you're choosing, you have the choice, how am I gonna react? Am I going to react from a place of, let's say, love or consciousness, or a place from fear and out of my old habits and unconsciousness? And it's a practice. So it's like going to the gym. You know, you're not going once to the gym and then expect a six-pack. You need to practice, and also when you stop practicing, you might lose it again. You know, so it's a continuous practice. I would say I know one conscious leader, and I work with her. Her name is Scylla Elworthy. Maybe some of you have heard of her. She was nominated 3 times for the Nobel Peace Prize, and she worked with Nelson Mandela and the Dalai Lama. Is an incredible, wise, inspirational woman. She's 79, and I work with her closely. I hold courses with her actually on conscious leadership. And I can tell you that also she has days where she's not leading from a conscious place. So even her, although she's considered to be a real expert in this and has been doing this for many, 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 many years. Yes, so I already said that my favorite definition of conscious leadership is, or a conscious leader is a person that uses all his or her human intelligence. So we have 3 centers of intelligence. One is the head, the IQ, the mind, the brain. The heart, the center of our emotional intelligence. And the gut, which is our body intelligence, our intuition, actually. And I mean, we all know about IQ. I don't think I need to go more into detail of what that is. We all heard about EQ, I think, ever since the book by Daniel Goleman, I think. EQ also became, in business, like a more common term. BQ is, I think, for many new, and intuition is something which is so, mystical and fluffy, and where does it come from? So it doesn't really belong into business yet. However, I mean, science has also proven that there is a brain in the gut. When I talk about emotional intelligence, it's that emotions that you can completely let them be and really feel into them, which is oftentimes uncomfortable, right? Because it's emotions that we learned not to feel. Like we have 5, I'm not going to go into detail with that, but we have 5 main emotions, like anger, which, we all, and especially women, learned not to be angry. Fear, we don't want to feel fear. Sadness, joy, which is the one that, you can do. And sexual feelings, which I'm not talking about lust, but I'm talking about the creative energy. So when we talk about emotional intelligence and what it can actually, tell us about a situation or about a decision, it's really important, just like with intuition, to be able to be present. And that is the basis for all of this, actually. Being able to be present with what is and to be really in the moment. And that also means to be in your body. You can, if you try now to have a thought about something and be in your body, it's not possible. So you know that if you're in your body, you cannot think. It's like it doesn't go together. And this is how you can test yourself if you are actually really in the space of utilizing your emotional intelligence and your intuition, or if it's your mind telling you something which then you might confuse for your intuition and your emotional intelligence. I also think that this is like a long practice in order to really be able to dissect what is what, and it takes a lot of presencing, practicing your kind of meditation, whatever works for you. But I personally believe there is no conscious leader that is not practicing being present. It's very difficult to hear your intuition or have contact with your emotions or let your emotions be if you're not practicing to be present with them. If you're constantly distracting yourself with something, for example, or constantly in your mind intellectualizing things. And why is it actually important to bring all of them together? Is that, as I mentioned before, you get access to unconscious knowledge, right? That you don't have when you're just in your head. And that means that you are taking more informed decisions, and you're able to tap into innovative problem thinking and creativity. That's why, we see actually a lot of artists or people that are not in the business world, that are not so heavy in their mind, they're able to access this quicker because they are way more in their body, way more with their intuition than the business people are that learned to be in their body, in their mind. Also, if you practice to really give space to your emotions and to listen to your intuition, you will start to trust yourself more. And that comes because you will notice that your decisions become better, be it like in business or in personal life. And what is interesting, I feel that if you trust yourself more and your intuition and your decisions as a leader, your team and the people that you work with will also trust you more, because they can sense that you trust yourself and your decisions more with that. So it's like by transmission, you gain more trust from the people that you work with. Okay. So a couple of characteristics. It could be an endless list, of characteristics of conscious leaders. I took those that I think are the most relevant ones. Number one, as I said, being present. You can sense maybe, I don't know if you have maybe been to speeches of mystics or conscious leaders or, people that have done a lot of awakened work, let's say. You can sense when you're in their presence, you can sense that they're present. It's like by transmission, you feel this person is really there with their full mind, body, spirit, basically. Conscious leader is embodied, as I said, because they are not only in their head, but taking decisions from their body. Self-aware, we talked about that. On the path of inner transformation. I personally feel you cannot do the work of a conscious leader without going through an inner transformation. Because if you are present with your emotions and your intuition, you will notice a lot of things about yourself. A lot of patterns will come up, a lot of new insights about you that will get you on a path of inner transformation. If you want or not, it kind of goes hand in hand. I see some people laughing there. It's like, okay, familiar?
Sounds familiar.
The other thing that was also in the radically responsible, I didn't mention that before. A conscious leader doesn't blame anyone or anything or any situation, even if it's not his, her fault, but they are aware that they're the creator and they take responsibility for everything. They're curious, which means they always come from a place of not knowing, you know, even though they might very well know better and someone says something which doesn't make any sense, they're still curious, maybe they can learn something. They act with integrity, they're empathetic and compassionate, that goes hand in hand with, you know, seeing the whole picture and taking all the stakeholders in consideration. They're good listeners and communicators, intuitive, and to see the big picture and not in their linear thinking. So why is conscious leadership important? Anyone is familiar with the acronym VUCA? V-U-C-A. It stands for volatility, uncertainty, complexity, and ambiguity. And basically, VUCA describes our current environment right now. So we live in a VUCA world where the complexity of the systems have become so big that we cannot grasp it anymore with our linear thinking. So we have on one side a business environment that is super volatile and changing constantly and very complex. And on the other side, we as the humanity in general are at a boiling point. So, you know, when water is about to get to be, you know, around 100 degrees and it goes from water to steam. And we are basically in that moment as a humanity right now. And a lot of us actually sense it, that there is something changing which we cannot stop. There is a moment of discontinuity to how we lived so far. So when we take those two together, you know, this world that is changing, like, and we know something big is happening right now. And then on the other side, the volatility and the complexity and the uncertainty. It's a logical, actually, consequence to think that how we lived so far and how we took decisions so far is not gonna work in this new world, in this new era. Because, you know, the linear thinking that we have used so far, you know, we have A and D, and we take step B and C to get to D, like the linear way of just making the whole world very predictable and explainable. That's what linear thinking is. That is not working anymore. I'm working with a big fashion company, and they're trying to make a small change, sustainability change. But they cannot make that change because that change will have an impact in like 50 different countries and impact 20,000 people. Although it actually looks like a small change. So our systems have become so complex, and the business world that we live in has so many uncertainties that we need to use more of our human intelligence that we have in order to take decisions that actually are better informed and more creative and more innovative. So that is for the business, let's say for the business aspect. I think it's inevitable to be a more conscious leader. Actually, I mean, when we say, like, why is conscious leadership important? In my opinion, conscious leaders are the ones that are running the most successful businesses. They are the ones who are having the best relationships, the most fulfilling relationships, and they are the ones that actually really can make a difference in the world and have a big impact. At least in this new time that we are in, conscious leaders are those people. On a personal level, if you practice to be a conscious leader, you will feel, after some time, you will feel more resilience, which is also, of course, benefiting, all the rest of your life. But you will feel, because you use your intuition and your emotional intelligence, that fear will not have such a big grip on you, because you are using these other types of intelligences that get you more into a conscious way of living, which also means, if we go now, and I know it's in a business setting, it's a bit tricky to say, but it's more into love and out of fear. There's the spectrum of love and fear. And if you use all your intelligences, you are less on the fear spectrum. We talked about the creativity and the problem solving, and by default, you will also see your relationships improve. Be it with colleagues, of course, as when you run your own business and you approach colleagues different, but also your relationships as family member or friend or partner. And also when we talk about conscious leadership, right? I didn't say that in the beginning, but we can use it in a business context, but we can also use it in any kind of context, because we are the leaders of our own life, and we are the leaders of, as a parent, you're also a leader. So this goes way beyond the business setup. Organizational. Now, I have to say that these numbers that I put in there, it's not based on conscious leadership. I haven't yet found a study on that, but it's based on emotional intelligence, and companies that are implementing emotional intelligence in their leadership see higher employee engagement and therefore higher profits actually, and a less turnover in their employees. Positive working environment and company reputation, of course, goes hand in hand with that. We all know companies that have, a good company reputation because they seem to be more, bringing more the human aspect into it. And those organizations are also the ones that are going beyond their own profit. They look after their employees, but they also look to have a positive impact in the world. And on the planetary level, conscious leaders are, again, I have to say, the ones that are, I think, going to save us, save humanity in the long run. Okay, I actually wanted to give you an example because there is one really good example of a conscious leader out there, who is Yvonne Chouinard, the founder and former CEO of Patagonia. Everyone knows Patagonia by now, right? He managed to create a business that is so profitable, one of the most successful businesses of our times, and at the same time is really having a positive impact in the world with his activism, or the activism of the company, actually. So that most of the people know, but what some people might not know is that actually in the 90s, Patagonia was about to be bankrupt. They were so close, and the shareholders actually said to Chouinard, you have to file for bankruptcy. And he didn't do that. He went with his gut feeling, and he took his executive team to actual Patagonia, out, in the mountains, which was completely out of the logic, they didn't have any money. Why are they filing for bankruptcy? Why would he do that? And they were there for 14 days in the wilderness, and they connected to nature, and they connected to themselves, to to the group and to themselves personally. And they came back with the strategy that not only rescued back then Patagonia, but it's still the strategy of the company. It's still the same strategy that they developed there. And this is how Shona is actually known to have led his company. Through all these years, he has not done what the original mindset would be, profitable. But he has always looked in the long run, like what is best in the long run and what is good for the planet. I don't know if you've heard, he gave his company away. Like last year, he lost his status as a billionaire. He gave it to a nonprofit because he says, Mother Earth is the only shareholder of Patagonia. It's so touching, it's so beautiful, because this is really a conscious leader that really is not going after his profit and after himself, but is taking the planet and the people that the company touches in every way, the stakeholders in consideration. So I wanted to give you that example because that's the only real conscious leader that I know of. I'm very happy. If you guys think you know someone, I'm very happy to expand my knowledge around that, because we should definitely have more. So as I said, I would like to, I've now spoken a lot about conscious leadership and intellectualized it enough. It's time for you to feel a bit what it means to act like, to be a conscious leader. And one of the important characteristics of someone who lives consciously, be it as a leader or a parent or whatever, the ability to listen. Now, a lot of us think we're great listeners until we really try it, because what it means to really listen is to be fully present with the other person. Most of us, when we listen, we are already making up what are we going to answer, connecting it to something that we can, that we relate to, that might help the other person. And meaning maybe also well, to give advice, but as long as we're in our mind thinking about what we're going to say, we're not present. By the way, I love the word present. It's like the present that you give someone, like you give the person a present by being there for the other person. So deep listening really requires a lot of self-awareness of our own inner dialogue and being fully present with the other person. It requires eye contact, which might also be sometimes difficult to keep the eye contact. Minimal, interruptions, be it also like nodding and things like that. That's also not letting the other person say and be whatever they want to say, because you're kind of encouraging them in a way. And again, listening with, all of our intelligences. So what we will do is we will do an exercise in pairs. So you're perfectly sitting together. Yes, great. And we are an even number. It's an exercise created by Scylla Alworthy. And she has done that in many big corporations and has had quite some interesting experiences with this. So what you will do is you decide who is person one and person two. Person one asks person two with the name, how are you really today? And then the person has 2 minutes to answer as authentically and openly as possible, right? I mean, it's also a practice to be authentic and open and to really pour out your heart, especially if you're sitting next to someone that you just met. I get it. But, try to be as authentic and open in this as you can. Person one who asked the question is practicing deep listening. So be aware, what does your inner dialogue say? Am I really present with the other person? And also use all of your intelligence here, right? So don't only listen with your ears what the other person is saying, but what do you sense from the other person? Like, what do you see in the body language? Like all of the, take in the full person that you see and all of what they're saying, right? And of course, try to keep the eye contact, don't interrupt, all of these things for 2 minutes. If you as the person 2 who's answering, after 30 seconds, you don't know anymore what to say, that's okay. Then just continue to look each other in the eyes, right? But don't start to talk about something, and no, it's like the person 2 is either speaking or just sitting and looking the other person in the eye. Don't, get out of the discomfort. After those 2 minutes, person 1 has 2 minutes to recap what she has heard, right? So again, you can say all of the things that you sensed, that you saw in the body language. Feel free to mirror the other person, all of what you think you heard. And then person 1 listens, right? Again, keep listening. After that, after those 2 minutes, then again, person 2 has 1 minute to kind of correct if there is some corrections, or to just mirror how they feel about what was summarized. The last point is important because we don't want to let things stand in the room that are not true, because the person might have seen something or heard something which was just a projection, and that's totally normal and okay. But we want to give the person who was answering the question the ability to, voice what was really happening for them. And after that, we switch roles. Okay? So it's 2 minutes answering the question, how are you really? 2 minutes reflection of what we have heard, and then 1 minute answering to the reflection. Yeah, so that was just a short exercise to give you a glimpse of what it means to practice being a conscious leader. So what can you do now, going back into your normal lives tonight and tomorrow? In your personal life, it starts with something very simple, and that is breathing. Also in the Vipassana, in the Vipassana we do 10 days of meditation. You start by focusing on your breath, and you're like 4 days only focusing on your breath. And the first time I was there, I was like, what the hell am I doing here? I'm concentrating 4 days only on my breath. How is that gonna get me anywhere? It makes all the difference. And it's a very, very tiny, simple step again, but it can really change so much. Just remember when you're driving the car, when you're walking, that whenever in any situation, to focus for a second or 2 on your breath. That will get you immediately into the present moment. And you cannot be in your head, you're in your body immediately. If you want to take this further, in any sort of stressful situation, in any sort of, triggering situation, try to first take 3 deep breaths before you say something or react something. Your reaction and what you say might be very, very different from what you would normally say. And then, of course, if you want to take it even further, you can do Kundalini yoga, you can do breath work. All of that is really helpful in coming back to your body and becoming more conscious of yourself. The other thing that I would advise, as I said, being present it's like a hygiene factor for a conscious leader. So practice that daily. Practicing presence can be meditation, but it can be anything, because some people don't like to sit in meditation, and I get that. Some people it's not for them. But practice any sort of activity that is getting you out of your head and into your body, and start by 10 minutes a day in the morning same time, same place. Why same time, same place? Is to make it a ritual. Because otherwise, our mind, because it will get uncomfortable for our mind, so we will find excuses of why not to do it or how to do it differently so we don't, get out of our mind. Our mind is a very intelligent, tricky thing. So if we keep to a routine and a ritual every day at the same time, same space, our mind will get used to it and it will become easier and easier. And then I would suggest that every week you add 5 minutes to that practice until you're at 60 minutes. 60 minutes in the morning is like a long time. And I know that we tell ourselves we don't have the time to do this. However, it is even proven that people that are meditating in the morning, they are way more efficient in their work. So that hour that you are spending there, you are going to catch up eventually. And also keeping in mind that the more practice you have in this, the less time you will then eventually need to sit in meditation, like a Scylla Elworthy. I know she doesn't sit 60 minutes, she sits 20 minutes in the morning. But then she also sits multiple times. But anyway, to start off, to really build the practice, this is what I would suggest. It's not easy. No one said it's easy, otherwise everyone would do it. It requires a lot of patience and a lot of getting over your, we say in German, innerer Schweinehund. There's so many Germans say, how would you translate that in English? Germans just have this word for everything.
What's a pink dog or something?
Yeah, your inner, resistance. Your inner resistance.
Let's say your monkey, the monkey on your shoulder.
Yeah.
It's kind of the same.
Yeah. And then try to get out of your head and do some exercises or actions that get you back into your body. Be dance or yoga or hiking. If you do hiking or walking or workouts, just be aware that you're not spending the whole time in your head. Because then, you're not, it's good, you are exercising, but you're not practicing being present, which means not being in your head, but being in your body. At work, you can start your meetings with a 3-minute presencing exercise. So what I'm doing is I start my meetings with a 3-minute meditation with the team. And I can promise you do this for 1 month and you will see the difference in your team. The communications will be different, the trust between each other will be different, the decisions will be taken differently. It's such a small change. And you might feel that the team might be very resistant in the beginning, be like, what is this? But pull it through with your team if you have, if you are an entrepreneur and you have your own business. And just try it for a month. And then if it doesn't work for a month, then you can let it go. But if you do it consistently, I promise you will see the change. And try to implement what we have just done now, open communication and deep listening. And if you have the possibility and the time and the resources, schedule meetings with your colleagues, maybe on a bi-weekly basis every 2 weeks or every 3 weeks, where you can just have this open communication about what's going on in the team. How do you feel? How are you? How is your life? Let's be more human and work again and not just be the linear thinking machines. And in all of that, very important to have fun. Because if we don't have fun with this, if we make it another task, it will not get the fruits that we're looking for. And to summarize, so conscious leader is someone who is using his or her full human intelligence, the IQ, the EQ, and the BQ. Presence is the hygiene factor in all of this. And conscious leadership is really a continuous practice and a choice that we are taking. So we need to be aware that there is no shortcut into this. Conscious leaders are rare. but they're highly needed, very much needed. And I hope that you dare after this to be a pioneer, and to go out there and to be a conscious leader and to make the small steps, you know, even if it's only in your personal life, these tiny steps that have a ripple effect, you know. And we all need to start with ourselves. That's, as we said, a conscious leader is responsible, so they start with themselves. And don't forget to do. That's it. Thank you.